All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the budget class number 4, the D word. Of course, we're talking about debt. So what is debt? Let's first off start there. Some people get confused on this sometimes. Debt is a very simple thing. It is anything at all that is expected to be repaid. If there is repayment expected, if you are expected to give this back, it is debt. And that includes whether it's to a family member, that includes the $20 you borrowed from a friend for dinner last week or last month, right? That includes all debts, everything that you need to repay. A mortgage is a debt. So is a backed phone bill, right? If you were behind on your phone payment last month or your water bill last month, that's debt. They might not call it debt. They might not contact your credit bureau or something like that on you, but it's debt, right? It's money that is expected to be repaid. If it's not expected to be repaid, well, that's a gift. That's what that is. There's only two types of thing. If you receive money from somebody or receive goods for which there's a bill, it's either debt that you owe, you have to pay for, or it was a gift. That's it. And so if you are debt-free, or at least the only debt you have is your mortgage, then congrats, you can actually skip this video. Okay, you can skip this class, you've already done it. But for the rest of us, let's go through and talk about debt. Now, the Bible talks about debt a fair amount, and it's never positive. It never considers debt a good thing. And this is one of the strongest passages on this. It says, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Proverbs 22:7. Now, it's important to understand slavery back then was a very different thing than many of us think about when we think about slavery today. Slavery back then was certainly not a sin to be a slave. It was a situation that many people found themselves in, many times not because of themselves, many times because, so for instance, if you were in a town and that town got attacked by a invading force, and the invading force would not certainly not always kill the people who lived there. They would a lot of time enslave them and so you become a slave, and that becomes, regardless of your race, regardless of your culture, regardless of where you're from, these kind of things. It's just now you are a slave. And in fact, back then, slaves could actually raise up quite high in the social strata. You had slaves who were people like there's a story in the New Testament about a eunuch who is a slave who works for the queen of the Ethiopians, and he's got vacation time because he's traveling to Jerusalem to worship, and he's got a chariot, he's got people around him, he's got his own slaves. Like, it's certainly not a good thing to be a slave, and I would certainly not want to get that across. But what I do want to get across is that it was much more normal back then, and certainly very disconnected from race and culture compared to what it is today, and the way that North American viewed it over the last couple hundred years. The Bible, what it does is it compares being a borrower to a slave, and what they're getting across there is that you're just not as free as you would be otherwise. You don't have the same ability to do the things you want to do when you are a slave, when you are in debt. That's what debt is biblically. It is this picture of you have a different master. You have somebody who is controlling what you do because you're not free. You have to pay the debt. Okay. So while we focus on getting our finances under control for God, it's really important that we make a plan to release the chains that are holding us down. And that's the debt. The debt is what's holding us back. So many of our income, if you, and I challenge you to do this, is actually look at all the dollar amounts that in the last month or the last 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever you want, how much money has been gone out from your bank account to debt. And you start realizing that's a lot of money. And so, for instance, a car payment, the average car payment in Canada right now is over $500 a month. So if you have 2 cars, now you have an average $1,000 car payments going out every month. Would you like $1,000 more per month in your budget? Get rid of your car payments and you've got it, right? Like that is where the chains really start coming in these kind of situations. So your exercise number 1 for this class is the debt inventory. It's time to be a big boy, be a big girl, and sit down and say, okay, where is my current debt load at? And so we want to do is we want to go through all the debt we have, right from the $20 you owe to your mom to the, to the credit card or the student loan or the mortgage or whatever, and get it all recorded in one place. Get the amount recorded, get the minimum payment recorded, the rate, and the contact information for the person. Okay. I had this in just a notepad in my computer at one point. Many people feel this is a very, very stressful exercise. So I want to give you the permission to take some time on this, right? But what I would challenge you to do is that if you're watching this video today, do something today. Maybe all you do today is you make what I just suggested. You make a notepad file, a text file on your computer, and you call it debtinfo.txt, and you save it, and you're done. And that's what you did today. Tomorrow, you will write down in that file one debt that you know of, and then you will be done with that. And the next day, you will write down one more debt in your file. This is how you deal with things that are stressful. This is how you deal with things that are frustrating or hard to deal with, is you take them one step at a time, nice and slow. And you really can do it. This is not outside your wheelhouse. This is something that entirely in your wheelhouse. You can do this. Okay. And I've got a little tool for you to help out. If you get over to WePayOffDebt.ca/debt inventory, it's just a nice sheet with the four columns laid out: the amount, the minimum, the rate, and the contact info. So it's just a single piece of paper. You could print it out and just fill it in on paper if you want. But that's the point, is it's just you need to sit down and actually have this information all in one place. And so what I like to do was actually, I would write down the debt, and I would not write down the amount until I wrote down the contact info, because then I would write down the contact info and then I would call and just ask them, okay, if I was to pay it off today, what would the total balance be? And they'll tell me, right? And they'll tell me the rate and all those things. So you don't get it wrong. So get all the exact details and know for sure. Because again, what we're doing here is we're working on the paradigm. What if you were paid $100,000 a year to manage your money? Well, if you're paid $100,000 a year to manage your money, you should know what the debts are. Right? Like, you should know what you owe to who and how much. Okay. So that's the goal here, is to get all the debts written down and be able to do so without having a mental freak out, right? It's really good. Totally understand when you do. No judgment at all, because I've been there. But you want to make sure that you're doing that. You're taking some steps forward to get that debt written down on a piece of paper. Get it under control. When you get that down, you add them up and you look at that total. And you want to feel that weight. Just like when you wrote down the total of your income earlier and you felt the responsibility of that. Now, when you write down, you see this total of your debt, you need to feel that weight, because you are feeling it. You're just walking around pretending like you're not, right? Like, you just don't realize, until you're debt free, you don't realize how much weight this debt holds on you. Okay. And so we're being brave today. Okay. It can definitely feel frustrating, like this couple here, or like this couple here. It can feel really frustrating when you're doing this. You start calculating out these numbers and you're like, oh my gosh. It can really be that, come to Jesus moment. It's called sometimes, right? Where you start realizing the truth about where things are at. And you've been doing this for a long time, and now you're actually looking at the truth. Okay. But this is the first step. You've got to know where you're at if you're going to make any progress on your debt. Okay, so we're being brave, we're stepping out, we're checking these out, and you're having lots of grace on yourself if you are feeling stressed, if you are feeling anxious about the stuff. Okay, don't be afraid. Be committed that I'm going to do this. I'm going to walk this out. This is not beyond me. This is something I can do. Okay. And then we're going to get resolved to kill it. It's going to die. Okay. This debt is not going to stay in your life. This debt is going to be something that you are going to get rid of, and you are going to get past. It's not going to be today. It's not going to be tomorrow, but it's going to be soon, and it will be gone eventually. And it will feel so good to have it gone. It would feel so good to have it out of your life. Okay. It does not have to be the way life is. Okay. Debt is going down. Okay. You got to get a little bit of this look in your eyes, right? I love these two pictures. It's like this look of, oh yeah, it's on now. Okay. This look of commitment, and it's on. I'm going to take this down. Okay. You can do this. It is not too difficult. Okay. It can definitely feel that way. Really want to encourage you. Yes, you can, and you should deal with this debt. Okay. So the truth about getting out of debt is that the harder you hit the debt and the faster you get out, the better a chance you actually get out. This is one of these things that a lot of people will talk about, should I pay off this debt or that debt, and in what order and what way, and then the 0% credit card transfers come in, and oh yeah, we'll just move it to that and we'll save interest here and there. And that's not your problem. If you owe $12,000, then you know how you get out of that? You pay $12,000 plus a little bit of interest. That's how you get out of debt. You actually put $12,000 of principal payments on it. And the harder you hit it, the more likely you actually get out of debt. Because after all, how inspiring and exciting is a 10-year payoff plan? If you've got $12,000 of debt and you're going to pay it off $120 a month at a time, or no, I guess that'd be $120 a year at a time for 10 years. Nope, didn't do that right. $12,000. So $1,200 a year. That'd be $100 a month. There you go. If you pay $100 a month, like you're saying, oh, okay, 10 years from now, I'll be out of debt. You're like, you have to be so committed to be able to stick to that. It ends up getting really, really difficult. The people that really get out of debt are the people that take that $12,000 debt and say, I'm going to hit it $1,000 a month and get out of debt in a year. Even when you're in that situation, if it doesn't work out and you don't pay $1,000 a month, you end up paying $800 a month or $900 a month, and you end up getting out of debt in 14 months or 16 months or 18 months, right? So the science is actually proven that the people who hit the debt really hard, they're the ones who actually have a better chance of getting out of debt at all. So your exercise number 2 is, now that you've got your total income and you've got your 4 walls, you now take that total income, subtract all the 4 walls that you've written down, and that's how much money you have left. Now you haven't got Netflix yet. You haven't got, some of the niceties of life out of that. You're not eating out yet, right? Because that's not in the 4 walls. But if you were to look at that and you say, that total amount of money left, I could throw all that at the debt, because you've done the 4 walls. You're living now, right? Everything that is necessary is taken care of in the 4 walls. So you could throw everything else at the debt. If you did that, how fast would you be debt free? And so don't worry about interest and so much, but just take the total consumer debt you have. Again, we're not talking about mortgage here. We're just talking about consumer debt, but we are talking about really big student loans, really big car payments, right? Everything like that. Take that total debt that you did in exercise 1 and divide that by the amount of money you have left at the end of your income minus the 4 walls. And when you divide that out, that's how many months it would take to get out of debt. So if you had a $12,000 worth of debt, and when you take your income and you subtract the 4 walls, you have $1,000 left. Well, then 12,000 divided by 1,000 would be 12. You'd be out of debt in 12 months, right? And so this can be a really valuable exercise, because when you realize that, like I just said, the 4 walls are everything that's needed. In other words, you could choose to do this. You could choose to throw everything else at the debt, and you'd survive, and you'd live, and you'd be out of debt in that much time. Okay. So if you're not going to do that, then you at least have to say, I'm not going to do that because of this. I think it's really important that my little Johnny goes to Kung Fu, so I'm going to put that in my budget, and that's going to slow down my debt repayment. Okay, but you get to say that. right? And you get to say, I could pay off my debt in 12 months, but I'm not because I want Johnny to do Kung Fu. Right. And you have to say that. That's adult stuff, ladies and gentlemen, right? That is being an adult with our money. That is choosing consciously where our money is going to go. Right. And realizing that there are trade-offs. Okay. Now, I want to show you, this is a Proverbs 6. This is one of the scriptures that Dave Ramsey is famous for. It says, my son, if you have put up security for your neighbor, if you've shaken hands in pledge for a stranger, you have been trapped by what you said and snared by the words of your mouth. So do this, my son. This is in a real biblical way of saying you've gone into debt, right? If you are in debt somewhere, you've been snared by your mouth. You said, I will repay this. I will take care of that bill. Then here's what you do. And so it becomes really interesting from the Christian point of view. It's like, oh, okay, I'm in debt. What do I do, Bible? Right? God, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? Here's what it is. Go to the point of exhaustion and give your neighbor, the person you owe, no rest. Allow no sleep to your eyes, no slumber to your eyelids. Free yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter, like a bird from the snare of the fowler. I had to look up what a fowler was. Somebody who hunts birds. Now, to the people in the Bible times, this would have been very familiar. They would know exactly what that means. Me, I don't. I've never seen a gazelle in real life. I've seen them on the Discovery Channel, right? Things like that. And so I went looking, and because go to the point of exhaustion and free yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter. What does that look like? And so I found a video here. And what we've got here, this is a hyena chasing. That's a baby gazelle there. And mommy gazelle is going to be back in the frame right away. There it is. And so this is what it looks like to say, run for like the running away from the hand of the hunter. This is what the Bible is getting across, guys. This is the picture. This is the picture that when you're in debt, you're running for your life. Run to the point of exhaustion. If one of them get caught, they're in trouble. Right? This is the picture the Bible uses to talk about getting out of debt. Go to the point of exhaustion. Free yourself like you are running for your life from a hyena. Okay, and so this is Dave Ramsey's quote. This is about his idea of gazelle intensity, and this is where he got this term. He says, quote, the way you get out of debt is you run like you're a gazelle with a cheetah chasing you. You go crazy. I mean crazy, intense, so gazelle intense, it's as if you're about to be eaten. You run. When you do that and you have that kind of intensity about getting out of debt, you can break the gravitational pull of stupid and move yourself in a better direction. That's what gazelle intensity is, running for your life. And guys, this is the biblical picture of when it said, if you've gone into debt, do this. This is the Proverbs picture of how the Bible challenges us to get out of debt, is to have gazelle intensity and really focus and hit it hard, because there is a whole lot of stupid in our culture today. In Canada today, there is a whole lot of stupid, a whole lot of opportunities to be stupid, a whole lot of opportunities to waste money, to blow our money. And we have to run hard to get out of debt and deal with that debt. Okay, so a little bit about our story. We talked a bit about this in the introduction, but here are some actual numbers. The numbers on the graph on the left, this is actually our debt amount over time. I was enough of a nerd that I actually would calculate this now and again. And you can see that over time, we were just, beat bopping along, go up and down. And you can see it was starting to go down. And the red line is where we discovered Dave Ramsey. And it was from there that we went straight down. And you can see we January 2016-ish, we finished October 2017. That's when we actually got out of debt. We also had this here, and you can see it's not at all a straight line. We started with just over $41,000, and you can see as the different months were happening, how much was coming off. So from February 23rd to March 3rd, we put away, that's about $1,000. Excuse me. And then from March to April, that looks good, about $1,500 even. And then from April to August, I didn't even get the details out, but it went, I didn't record it between April and August, but then in August 1st, we were down to 30,000. That was awesome. And then by October, we're down to 24, and then, right. And so we're able to see this progress as we go. And it was not at all in a straight line, because by seeing this progress, it looks like a straight line here, but that's only because I didn't record it very much on the spreadsheet. But the progress is not at all straight, because you actually get more and more excited over time, because this is all we were about. This was everything we were focusing on. And we didn't have a budget class like this. This is why I'm creating this class, because this is the class I wanted. But we still were really focused on, we want the debt gone, all of the debt just gone, everything. And so we'd just find any dollar amount we could to try to get it paid off as fast as possible. And even without budgeting very well, even without fulfilling this budget, we were able to do this. And this was after, and you can see, I mean, we were making some progress here, but the real progress did not happen until after we got really focused on it. And in fact, had we not been really focused on it, it would have gone back up, because it's at a point in there, our car really needed to be replaced, and we didn't replace it because we were so focused on paying off the debt. So my challenge for you, as you're making your budget, let me urge you on this. Throw every penny you can at the debt and hit it really hard. It is totally worth it to get out of debt. The debt is really holding you back in a lot of ways. And sometimes you honestly don't even realize how much it is until you start doing things like add up all your payments every month. And then you're like, wow, that much money is going out every single month just on payments? I would love to get a raise of that much. And that's what you would get if you paid off the debt. The power of focus is really one of the big keys of the Dave Ramsey plan, is saying that I'm going to focus on this to the exclusion of everything else. The most important thing I'm doing right now is this. And guess what? When you focus on something, it gets done. For those of you that are married, how did you get married? How did you actually manage to convince that spouse to marry you? You focused on them, right? You focused on very intentionally on one very specific person for a good chunk of time until it got to the point where you were able to actually become married, right? Focus works, right? When you focus on, and the alternative, of course, is where you're trying to do a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there and a little bit there. And every one of them makes boop, that much progress. Did you see it? Like, boop, right? Like when everything makes tiny progress, nothing's exciting. Nothing's motivating. Nothing's encouraging. When you start seeing progress like we did, again, we were not making tons of money. I mean, we were, because I managed to somehow from February to March pay off $1,200. But in January, I didn't put $1,200 on my debt. In fact, I probably went negative in January, right? Like that's the thing, is that once we actually really cut down our budget as much as possible and started, like, again, without being great at budgeting at that point, we were able to actually throw a good chunk of money at the debt that month. Okay. And as you're doing this, think with the plan of saying, okay, what can we do to actually get this paid off? Not on a 10-year plan, not on a 5-year plan. What about 18 to 24 months? Would you believe that most people, by far the majority of people on the Dave Ramsey plan get out of debt in 18 to 24 months? It's uncanny. And that was one of the things that ticked me off when I first started listening to the show, is that I'm like, I have about $40,000 in debt, and I'm listening to people who are paying off $60,000 of debt, making less than me, and they're doing it in 12 months, 18 months. I'm like, come on. Like, I can't even do this in 5 years. How are you doing it in 18 months, making less money than me? Like I was convinced it must be a fake, but there's just too many of them. It all comes with the power of focus. That when extra money comes in, that's where it goes. When you're not seeing the progress you want, you start picking up extra jobs. By the time August came around here, I was probably already tutoring. I was doing side businesses and trying to bring in a little bit extra money, however I could, trying to throw extra money at the debt. Right. So when you have that power of focus, it really does a massive job at changing the game. Now, to pay off your debt, the best way is something called the debt snowball. And this is actually scientifically proven to be the best way, though not mathematically. What the debt snowball is you take all your debts and you line them up from least balance to greatest balance. So like I said earlier, if you owe $20 to your mom, right, that would be right at the top. That'd be one of your smallest debts, right? So you put that right at the top, and that would be the first debt you pay off. And you're like, but Rob, it's $20 to my mom. It's no interest. Like, she doesn't care. She doesn't want it back. Doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point of the debt snowball is twofold. One is you actually pay stuff off, and that feels good. That feels really good. It's a really big psychological boost to pay stuff off and do so in a way that you actually are seeing progress. Secondly, of course, the reason it's a snowball is because most things, when you pay them off, have a payment involved. And as that thing gets paid off, now that debt payment is now freed up to go towards something else. So imagine you've got a $500 car payment and you finish paying off your car as one of the lower items on your debt snowball. Now, all of a sudden, you've got $500 more to put towards the next element on the list. And that's how it works. So when you line up your debt snowball, you line up all your debts from smallest balance to highest balance, regardless of the interest rate. And regardless of the payment, even lowest balance to highest balance. And you pay minimums, just the minimum payment on everything except the smallest one. And the smallest one, you squeeze every penny out of your budget you can, and you throw it all at the smallest debt until that's paid off. And then once that's paid off, then you move to the next smallest debt, and you now throw everything at that, including whatever payments were freed up from the first one, right? And so in this way, it snowballs, and many people discover in the first 6 months, they're paying off many small debts, and it feels amazing to see that progress, to really see that, oh my gosh, I can do this. And there's a bunch of nerds like me on Twitter and all these places where they'll complain, no, the debt snowball is not the best way to do it. It is the debt avalanche is what you should do. And the debt avalanche is where you line them up from highest interest to lowest interest rate. And that's a very nerdy way of looking at it, because absolutely, when you line them up from highest interest to lowest interest, you are going to technically pay the least amount of interest if you're built on one assumption. And that assumption is you're going to continue doing it and you're going to pay the same amount every month, regardless of which method you use. And neither of those things are true. More often, and this has been proven scientifically, again, in an actual scientific study, that people who do the debt snowball are more likely to actually stick with it. People who do the debt avalanche, less likely to stick with it because they don't see the progress as quickly. People who, and therefore they end up actually getting out of debt, whereas the other people don't. And in the same way, people who do the debt snowball, they pay off the small loans, they get more excited about being out of debt, and they cut deeper and bring in more income, and therefore the amount they're putting towards their debt goes up compared to what they would have been doing on the debt avalanche. So by and large, or completely, debt snowball proven to be the best way to pay off your debt. And it's really, really exciting. So I'd encourage you, now that you've got your debts written out, go ahead and rewrite them from smallest balance to highest balance, and even look at this month's debt, this month's income, and how much is left after your four walls. How much of your debt could you actually pay off this month? Right? It gets to be a really exciting thing. Okay. So exercise number 3, write out all your debts from smallest balance to largest balance, regardless of interest, regardless of payment. Now, exercise 4, warning, there is a bit of math here ahead, but you are allowed a calculator. Okay, so don't worry too much. Exercise number 4 is to choose your number. And by choose your number, I mean how much are you actually going to put on the debt this month? Because like I said, once you've got your income and you minus off the four walls, Everything else is free money. It's money that does not need to go to something else. It could go to your debt. So how much of that are you going to put on your debt? Choose your number. Then divide your non-mortgage debt by that number and see how many months it'll take to get out of debt. So again, using that example I used earlier, if you had $12,000 of debt and that number is $1,000, well, then 12,000 divided by 1,000 is 12. That you'll be out of debt in 12 months, right? And it can be encouraging to see. It can be frustrating to see, depending on what your number is, depending on where your debt is. And so once you've done this, you don't have to share the number if you don't want to, but go ahead and jump on the Facebook group and then share how you feel about that number. When you see that number of months and you're like, shoot, man, that's 40 months. I don't know if I can do that. Or, geez, that's only 12 months. How in the world, like only 12 months, I could be out of debt in 12 months. That's exciting, right? Come share how you feel when you look at that number. Is it big? Is it small? Is it overwhelming? Is it exciting? Lots of emotions come up with these things. So definitely come share about it. Sacrifice deeper, make extra money. It won't go in a straight line. I love this little girl, right? Like you can do this and it's totally worth it. And it's not going to be a straight line. The amount you put in the first month is not going to be the amount you finish putting in. We put in a little bit in the first month. Well, you saw even $1,000 in the first month, but then it got bigger over time, how much we were able to pay off. I mean, we paid off all of our debt in 19 months. If we only paid $1,000 a month, that would be $19,000, and it was $41,000. So there you go. That proves it got more intense over time, right? So yeah, and that's how it works. The more excited you get at paying off debt, the more you find ways to cut, the more you find ways to sacrifice, the more you find ways to get it done. And when you get there, it is totally worth all the effort, guys. It is totally worth all the sacrifices. It is totally worth, especially if it's 24 months. You can do anything for 2 years. You can do anything for 24 months. You can trek through any kind of muck as long as you can see that light at the end of the tunnel, right? That light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not an oncoming train, right? It is a light, and you are almost there. 24 months, 23 months, 22 months, 21 months. We're almost there. It's that when you've got a 100-month goal, and it's like, well, geez, what am I going to do with that? So you got to find some way to deal with that if that's where your number's at. Okay. So I hope that brings you some value today. We'll leave it there. Have a good one. Talk to you again.